It is very difficult to determine, even in one's own self, much less others, you see, whether something is truly selfless. And by selfless, we have to say, because some people are not familiar even with the term selfless, it means to not be concerned, not to be psychologically self-conscious of how you're coming across and how well you're doing, and if you're being perceived by others to be kind or not. So we can put that out there like this. How can we be clear, how can we be sure that our actions don't contain a kind of selfishness, or we have a selfish motive behind our seemingly unselfish and kind and compassionate gestures? I would say on the whole, for most human beings, and we'll come to this question more, but I'll hint at it now, we are highly involved with our own identity. And that itself leads to a kind of selfishness. We're so insular, so much myopic. Myopic meaning that we're only self-referencing. And we are brought up, many of us, to appreciate acts of kindness and so on. And we like to be kind ourselves. But very often, genuine kindness is rare. Meaning that someone gives without any motive, without any sense that they want something in return, even a thank you even. So they're quite someone who gives in the dark, from the dark, just give without needing to show their face and so on. There are many people like that also, but by far not the majority. No? Most people want to be appreciated, so when they do something that is felt to be kind, they want people to know that it's kind. Even people who pray, sometimes they want to pray that people see them praying and how expressive we can pray and so on. So this is very, very difficult one. If you have issues of self-importance, any kind of ego, it will be very, very difficult to perform a selfless action. If it starts at the place where, say, it's in response to a genuine need. Suppose someone collapses in the street, an elderly person, or even a young person collapses in the street, and then you may feel to go over, and your reflex is, say, to go. It may not be for some people a reflex. They may stop and think, even though there's no threat to them at all. You see, they may still stop, and if you have a kind of suspicious mind, you may still think, maybe it's somebody's faking that they've collapsed, so that when I get close, they'll mug me or something. You see, it depends how much fear is in the mind also, you see. But let's take it another step, that it has happened before, where you may respond to an obvious need for help. Say someone has collapsed in the street there, and you go over to help them, and say they are smelling of alcohol and looking, and then also sometimes your mind may give you a lot of trouble, then people might think, I am drinking with them, they're my friend, and so on. So we have a lot of complexities about this, you see. And then sometimes you genuinely respond to a call for help or a need to assist, and then it seemed it was very spontaneous, and then your mind says, you were very good, yeah, very good. Look how many people saw you, 2 or 3 stars in your crown today. Where people have difficulty is in the reaction that comes from the mind, when the mind starts to come and give some summarization of what you have done and so on. They have a lot of trouble with that, and it's very, very difficult to avoid that. And some people, in the end, they say, I don't want to do anything like this because my mind gives me a hard time after that. Assistance was rendered to someone. It was appreciated. That was fine. Everything is fine about that. And don't give up, because it is the ego that attacks, but it is the ego that is attacked also. If you understand this thing, then you can say, okay, mind plays these kind of games, and you disregard it. Don't do too much self-analysis about it, and just get on with your life. Leave it behind. What would happen if, say, in response to a cry for help, or a situation where assistance is deeply required or something, you participate in that, or you're pulled to do this, but then fear arises inside that maybe I'll be attacked by this person who I'm trying to help, or maybe other people might take advantage, or whatever the things that might play. How to go past this? How does one deal with that? Generally, I would say it is very. There are exercises that can assist you to do this. There are many people who are giving certain kind of training like that. But I have to come straight away and say that all difficulties that we experience, whether it is a fear of rejection or the fear of the lack of appreciation, or whether we are worthy enough, or whatever, all different shades of fears and anxieties, they come to us because we are not actually sitting in our true place, and we are living from a place of a very wrong identity, limited identity, actually. We live primarily in the notion of merely being our body-mind and conditioning. And that is not our true self. It is a limited portrait of our completeness. And so because we live in this very narrow, limited state, then all of these idiosyncrasies and strangencies, they come with that state. And in a deeper level, I like to introduce that. In a deeper level, what it means is that because we don't get it right at this level, and I think it is good that we don't get it right at this level, because our failure at this level to find that complete state, it stimulates an urge to go more deeply into exploring into our nature. If our projections, our idea of who we are in this limited portrait was true, we would not grow. There has to be some aspiration, and aspiration is born out of suffering and difficulties also like that. So the deeper question and quest would be a real search for completeness, which you will not find simply by having a healthy body. It's a good start, it is helpful, but it is not enough by itself. It would have to be something internal. You'll have to go back again to the source of what it is that we are, and not just understand it intellectually, but to really experience that directly. From there, then things will begin to come very, very right. You ask, what are we trying to get to? Well, actually, whether we are conscious of it or not, our urge is for lasting happiness, for peace, for harmony, actually. But not being aware of that consciously, we go about of it in search of this in so many different ways, and externally through relationships, through sport, through so many different activities. And we have to go through them, and then eventually to discard them, to say, well, it's not that, it's not lasting. The lasting peace, because it is instinct in us to search for lasting peace, or a joy that is unbroken, a happiness that doesn't fade. There's a pulse inside the human spirit, not just human spirit, but all sentient beings, a search for life, a clinging to life. And some of us intuit somehow that life should be eternal. It has to be at some level eternal or timeless or something. And this is the drive, the urge, the desire for life, in fact, is in search of something that is that doesn't fade. First, we try through the senses and the things that we imagine, through sport and through relationships and so on like this. And we come to see that we gain experience, but everything fades, like clouds passing in the sky. They come and go. Everything is coming and going. So at some point, the question does arise, and very often, very naturally, at some stage, if your seeking is earnest, life brings it to you, life arranges it for you, that you will come to the next opportunity, and it will be introduced to you consciously. You see that. So it may happen through some encounter with someone. It could even happen through an accident. You may just fall off your bike or something, and it shakes something up deeply enough to stir up some deeper questions in you. or you may find a change in your inner environment, the way in which you feel and think is beginning to change. And the steps roll on in front of you like that, So, at the heart of, even when we experience fear in life, it stimulates a deeper yearning to go beyond fear and to find that place of total rest within us. Most human beings are not aware that such a thing exists even. We have only tasted it momentarily, but unfadingly, few have experienced this. You ask, what is it that can help to trigger a longer lasting, if not eternal or permanent, recognition of our highest state of being? What gets in the way of that? The consciousness that we are temporarily is wearing this garment of a form, I would say like this, a biological suit for a while, if you're going to wear it. And in that expression of life, it will learn what it needs to learn through this body, like that. But it also must go through the experience of believing that it is the body for a while, and that it is the conditioning or the programming that happens inside that body. Only later to then come to a deeper realization that that is insufficient, it's inadequate, it is not true, because these are qualities and objects that are fading and changing. And it intuitively know that there's something beyond this. So that search is actually being driven by a deeper, maybe subconscious or an unconscious force that drives us to not abandon seeking, in fact. That life is also seeking. What stops or prevents this switching on of the light of awareness, you may say, of pure self-awareness or something? It can't be put in any kind of mechanical terms. I can say that as soon as we began to function in terms of a human being and identity and the body and the life force and so on, we became addicted to experiencing. We totally love experiencing. We can't give it up on every level, even the painful is part of the total dynamics of the field of experiencing, and we totally love it. And then we believe it also. The information that comes through the senses and the mind, and we get very entangled in that. And yet, the reality in us is quite apart from that. It allows a certain amount of identification to arise from itself, and that identification that arises from itself plays as the sense I inside this body. When you feel the sense I, because everyone refers to themselves as I. It is the most important word in any language, the feeling of I and what it represents. Nobody gave it to you. The world and your parents may teach you every other word, but nobody gave the word I to you, the sense I. It is intuitively arising with consciousness, and its implication, it indicates consciousness. I is consciousness. But when consciousness is experiencing through this body, something it is compelled for a while to identify with the body and say, I am the body. Now this I am the body belief gives rise to a second name, and that is the given name you take from your family. George, Michael, Luke, Mooji, or whatever, is the second name, and that really refers more to your person. I really refers to presence, because how we know ourselves, even before being taught anything else, is through your intuitive awareness that you exist. And this I exist feeling or sense in us arises as the feeling I am. And that I and amness, that is our beingness, that is our consciousness. That's what we are, actually. But that consciousness gets in some way transformed or converted into the notion of a person, which is a contraction of it. It is a limitation of that. But the consciousness lives for a while in the notion of being a person for some time, until it is mature enough to begin to inquire into its original nature. So while we are in the state of identity as a person, it is a very complex state, a very intense state, full of friction and anxieties, because it is not a stable state. But it is designed to not be stable, because its very instability provokes a search for what is stable. And this is the carrot in the life, because you have to always be aspiring in order to evolve and to mature.